you don't have that position secured, that's inexcusable. I used to be a SWAT medic. I was one of the first SWAT medics in the United States. And I can tell you that we would start practicing to sniping against terrorists. We'd start at 100 yards. And I can tell you, and we shoot at balloons, that's not a hard shot, not hard shot at all. And that within 130 yards, elevated position, clear line to the president, and nobody is safeguarding that building. That's inexcusable.
I mean, anyone who has called this former president an existential threat has blood on their hands, and that's President Biden.
We have new information on the sniper counterattack versus the Trump shooter. We're going to talk about it in this video, but first, in the event that you're religious, this is wild. Maybe even if you're not religious, but supposedly the flag at the Trump rally, right before Trump came on stage to speak, got tangled up and had to be untangled. And this is what it looked like right before Trump's speech. If you don't believe, I don't know, some folks are saying, oh, no, it's from a different rally or it's some other day or whatever. But let's just say this is from the rally, because that's what the mainstream thought is. It's only some people who want to sort of counter everything Trump, it seems like. They're saying, no, it's something else. This is pretty remarkable, especially given the sheer luck that Donald Trump was looking at a presentation, sort of like a PowerPoint slide, right? Moved his head because he was making a point during the speech. He looked away from the presentation to make a point to the audience, then looks back at the PowerPoint presentation on the screen, and there you go. This particular poster mentions that 0.05 seconds is what we were from Civil War. Now, we don't need to speculate on what would have happened in the event there were actually a severe injury or something worse here for America, because this is, let's be clear, an assault on democracy. There's no place for political violence here, whether you like Trump or not. We don't solve our problems by killing people. There is some new information about the shooter. First, I do want to send my condolences to this person who shielded his daughter. If this is correct, this is the individual who was shot in the head while shielding his daughter from the shots. This is very sad. And this person is no longer with us after this tragic shooting. Now, let's talk about the shooter. So the first thing that we have is new aerial footage. And this aerial footage is actually quite useful because initially, yesterday, when we looked at footage that we had access to with the prevailing information that we had, we believed the shooter was at the far end of that rooftop. Take a look here. This was the mainstream thought at the time. The shooter was on this end of the roof. The reason for that was because of the angle of the footage that we had here. This made it seem like he was very close to the edge. But because of how flat that roof is, it's actually quite possible that shooter was well far down that rooftop. Now that's very interesting because when you combine it with this aerial footage, you get some interesting new information. The shooter may have actually been all the way closer to the parking lot side, even though he looked like he was so much closer to the other side. This is just another example where perspective can provide so much detail. There you go. And given how flat that roof is and how far back those individuals were in the tree, they were actually able to see his sort of side profile from that distance. That's maybe another 50 feet. Quite remarkable. And this gives us a lot more color here. Now, what's fascinating about this is the counter snipers were here on the roof. Donald Trump was over here, which means the sniper potentially had the benefit, or the person shooting what we now know as the AR-15, had the benefit of potential partial tree coverage, not for his shot on Donald, but for the sniper's return fire. It may have been difficult to see him. Remember, Donald Trump was shot at roughly 6:15 p.m. Now, why does this matter? Because the snipers would be looking almost exactly west. Well, what happens at 6 p.m. when you look towards the west? I'm not making excuses here. We've got a lot to talk about here. But I haven't seen anybody else talk about this other than shout out to McKay in the office yesterday. We were brainstorming about what could have gone wrong with the sniper here. There's a chance not only did they have tree coverage looking at this side of the building, but also sunlight directly into their eyes, which again reiterates why it is so stupid of the Secret Service not to have had somebody here. I think at this point, though, we're all on very much the same page, that the Secret Service should have had this building covered. Everybody can agree on that. Yes. The second thing everybody can agree on is why, for 2 or 3 minutes, are people shouting, "There's a man with a gun," and nothing happened. I made this clear yesterday, and I want to go into more information here in just a moment, but I made this clear yesterday that when somebody is shouting, "Gun, gun, gun, man with gun," the first thing that should happen, the very first thing that should happen, is the president should be removed from the stage. It's very simple. Take it as people not playing a joke, protect the president, and worst case scenario, if everything's fine, he has a little 2 or 3 minute break and you put him back up. It's like mind-blowing. I'm convinced that local law enforcement and the Secret Service, at least a good portion of them, were on the same radio channel, usually a Bravo or Charlie channel, a secondary or tertiary channel for an event, and it would have been very simple. Hey, reports of gun. Now, we believe that did happen. They just didn't remove the president. So there was another failure of communication there. The reason we believe that happened is because we see the snipers prone to counter snipers proned in on that target before the shooting even begins. This was before Donald Trump took the stage. Counter snipers scanning. Okay? Then this is 42 seconds before. The quality is trash of this, but we know the sort of famous shot. They're proned in and they're looking down scope, scanning that building. Now, one thing that's very difficult about that building, and it's worth knowing, is that when you have an apex, it's quite difficult to see down when you're at the other side of that apex. Again, not here to make excuses. There are other theories as well. For example, there's someone posting, and we don't know that this is true. I always like to preface this because it's very, very careful. We have to be very careful to make assumptions when we don't know if these things are true. But it is possible. I don't know, but this is some anonymous post on a forum somewhere that suggests, quote, "They wouldn't let me take out the shooter is the title." And then it says, "My name is Jonathan Willis. I'm the officer in the famous photo of the 2 snipers on the roof at Trump's rally. I came here to inform the public that I had the assassin in my sights for at least 3 minutes. But the head of the Secret Service refused to give the order to take out the perp. 100% the top brass prevented me from killing the assassin before he took the shots at President Trump." I don't know if that's true. First of all, it's usually not the head of the Secret Service that needs to make that call. It would be some likely squad leader on the ground there. I don't think it's, hold on, let's call the head of the Secret Service, who's probably not at the event. So that makes me a little sussed out about this. But it's something interesting that does go along with this thesis of, hey, they were looking over at the individual. My thinking is a little bit different, and maybe I'm giving too much of a benefit of a doubt here, but this is sort of my theory, and then I'm going to show you some more angles and information here from that helicopter view that we have. My view is that when you're facing this building that's actually relatively flat, but that has these sort of rails in it, right? You've got these little like rails that the guy was sort of in. This is just sort of your sheet metal rails. If you're in this, it's entirely possible that they saw the perp looking over the edge like this. And it's entirely possible that he had his rifle on his side as he's sort of looking out and observing the situation. So it's possible that through the trees and with the sun likely in this direction over here, and then the snipers, the counter snipers, in their building, obviously further away. This is a terrible drawing. I'm not a drawer, okay? There's a reason I'm not an artist. But anyway, you got your counter snipers over here. I actually shouldn't draw it like that. See, that implies that they had a higher angle. I actually don't think they had a much higher angle. I think they were likely roughly the same height, close to the same height. It's entirely possible that they did not see a weapon.
The problem is that in that area on the roof, there could have been a slight wall covering him, hiding him, and sometimes, I mean, we are taught as snipers to find rain gutters that go out of those little walls and shoot through those so that nobody can see you on the other side. So they may have had a very obstructed view.
Right.
Generally, law enforcement are trained in shoot, don't shoot scenarios where you don't shoot unless you see a firearm. Okay, so what does this have to do with the actual shooting? Well, I made a short on this that I posted on X at RealMeatKevin. I actually put it on TikTok too, but I generally don't TikTok too much. But I think this short is very interesting because what you're going to see is you're going to see them looking down scope. And then right before the shooting begins, you see his head bob up. I wonder if they roughly had the shooter in scope. Maybe they were magnified too much. But I wonder, which is possible, if he was magnified too much, maybe they saw him reach for something. You know, like, think about it. His head's over the railing. He's got his gun on the side, his rifle. And they've got scopes on him. And they're like, I don't see a gun. I don't see a gun. I can't take the shot. I can't take the shot. I don't see a gun. Oh my God, he's got a gun. The second they see the gun come up, you go, this guy might be too magnified. He might be going, is that a gun? He looks up from his scope. Oh my gosh, he has a gun. Wants to go back. Oh, the shooting's starting. Loses his positioning, then comes back to come take the shot. Okay, watch closely. Here, you can see the counter snipers, and you see them jolt back, in my opinion, out of shock that shooting is happening. And then listen closely. You'll have to replay it a few times, I think. Listen closely, not to the first pop, pop, pop. Okay. Let me just pause there because I really want to frame by frame this, okay? Right here, the shooting, you see that head bop bag right there? I think he's too magnified. He's so honed in. I think he sees, because really, in my opinion, absent like someone telling them not to shoot, they probably had the orders, shoot if you see a gun. And they probably didn't, because I think the guy probably whipped it out and goes, boom, boom, boom. And then he gets frustrated that he doesn't get a shot and he fires another 4 or 5, boom, 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 boom. And then that's when he gets taken out, right? But look at this. He's honed in. Watch the head bob. Boom, right there. See the head bob up? And then the flinch back is not a shot. That is not a shot because you do not hear the lower caliber shot, which you will hear later. In fact, watch this slip. Oh no, shooting's happening. He pulls the whole tripod back. Do you see that? The whole gun gets pulled back. That's not a shot. That's, oh my gosh, we're getting shot at. It's the, what does active self-protection always say? The fibs factor? Fudge, I'm being shot at. Okay, let's hear, because if you watch very closely, you'll see the head bob happens before the first shot. Watch. That shooting is happening, and then listen closely. You'll have to replay it a few times, I think. Listen. It's almost like pulling back the tripod happens before the first shot. It's the shock of having seen the gun. And then listen closely. You'll have to replay it a few times, I think. Listen, right? And now I want you to listen closely, is what I'm saying here in this TikTok video, to the caliber of shots. So what I do is I put on screen shot, impact, and you're gonna hear counter shot. I want you to pay attention to the difference of that sound, because that's the single shot which went into the suspect's head and I believe out of his neck. I think he got a full through and through. I'm not going to show the graphic photo of why I believe that. But then I'm going to give you an updated map, because the shooter was not likely here, he was likely there, and that makes a very big difference. Okay, here.
Look what happened.
Ba-bum. There it is. Okay, you can replay that yourself over and over again, but I think it's pretty clear. There was one counter shot, and it came at the end of the series and stopped the threat. So this is my take. Now, let's look at the updated map of this, because I think it's actually quite useful. The updated map comes as a result of aerial footage that we now have from a helicopter, which we showed you a little bit of that already. And this map basically inherits that helicopter footage and tries to draw some angles here. And so here you have Trump, and you can see the shooter has a direct line of sight, LOS here. The sniper team actually has to shoot into the sun through potentially the tree to take the shot. Now, you did have a second sniper here. We're not sure, obviously, which one took the shot. But I think the most likely scenario here is not that, oh, the top brass said don't take the shot. I think they saw the guy. I think they didn't have eyes on a weapon. Their training says, you literally, look, I was a law enforcement explorer for 3 years. That doesn't mean I have a lot of proficiency in this stuff. I'm just trying to take the little bit that I have and try to understand, right? Take the information we have and try to understand. It's very common. We used to do shoot, don't shoot scenarios. We do them with submunitions. We do them with computer screens. You do them with airsoft. You do them with plastic, the rubberized guns. It doesn't matter. Shoot, don't shoot, very normal. And a typical scenario we would have is we would have somebody like this. Hey, F you, officer. F you, officer. I'm going to shoot you. I'm going to kill you. I hate you. And it's a phone. And that was a very, very typical scenario of testing officers. Because now if you shot, because you got scared because somebody was taking an object like this, obviously if it was a black phone, it'd be a little bit more intimidating potentially. But a lot of phones are very black. So, you take out what looks like a black object and you take it out like you're going to go shoot the guy. And a lot of people, they hear that scenario and they're like, oh, why would somebody be so dumb and do that? People do it, the whole suicide by cop thing or whatever. But then there are also times people actually pull out a gun. And it's like, in that moment, when somebody's like, I'm going to kill you, you're thinking, if I shoot and he doesn't have a gun, I lose my job and I just killed an innocent person. Maybe he's just a dumb kid who's climbing to a roof trying to get a better view of Trump, joking around, being a dumbass. And then all of a sudden pulls out an AR-15. You're like, oh, he's got a gun. Pop, 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 pop. Oh, whew. It took 5 seconds and 27 milliseconds for that all to play out, by the way. So, fast, but given that they had sights on them, not the fastest. The biggest failure was just obviously not having somebody on that roof. I think that's very clear. I think we can all agree that there was a massive failure here. Now, other folks are mentioning, and I just want to mention this. I don't know that this would have changed anything here, but there is a lot circulating on social media that has to do with this particular video.
To expand hiring, they're aiming to have 30% women recruits by 2030, and even allowed YouTube influencer Michelle Carre to train with agents.
But I'm very conscious, as I sit in this chair now, of making sure that we need to attract diverse candidates and ensure that we are developing and giving opportunities to everybody in our workforce.
Okay, so obviously there's a lot circulating here about DEI. And I have some comments on this because we spent a lot of time on this. Let's see, Russia stage. I'm going to look at a video here. I want to show you Secret Service. There was somebody who jumped a barrier a while. Oh, it's impossible to find now. Yeah, because it's all just DJT. Oh yeah, this is a good example. Yeah, this is it. I found it. Wow, I thought it'd be a lot harder to find this now that every time you type in, Secret Service Russia's stage, you're just getting, yesterday's stuff, which makes sense, right? But here's an old video where somebody hopped a metal barrier And I want you to see the response of the Secret Service here. You have 3-4 men who are roughly the same height of Trump, creating this barrier around him. And the first one grabs him like he's ready to just yoink Trump to the ground. See that? Look at Trump kind of try to brush it off, but look at how they're wrestling almost. Grab. And Trump's like, no, it's okay. But they grab him tightly, like they're ready to just toss him to the ground and throw him into a car to get him out of there. And Trump kind of brushes it off like, let me keep going to my work here or whatever, right? Yesterday, when we saw this rush, we had a Trump that was able to be substantially, I mean, he's been defiant before in this, but what you had was you had 3 men and 2 women that were on the protective detail here. And the problem with this is, just from a physical point of view, both of them are substantially shorter than Trump, who's tall. You know, he's over 6 feet tall. So she's not covering him at all. There's a giant hole, and forgive the quality here. I don't know what YouTube's up to here. But anyway, there's this giant opening here to take a second shot. You know, typically, you wouldn't have Donald Trump being able to fight the Secret Service here and cheer, fight. Now, obviously, it was iconic. It's a moment, but what if there had been a second shooter? Second shooter here, and you have people who are not potentially as strong as what we saw in the last video, that are trying to move the president, but they're not able to move him because of, you know, just the natural physical differences of men versus women. There are some people who are questioning, should there be people who are shorter and potentially less strong on the protective detail responsible for taking an over 200-pound, 6-foot person off of a stage and protecting them rapidly? So there are some questions around that. Now, listen, I'm all for equality and women, as long as the quality of protection doesn't get diminished, right? So I want to be very clear about that. It is also interesting that you'll see if you go to the actual full scene again that we saw yesterday. It is very interesting that right after the shooting occurs, you rapidly see this rush of the counter-assault team, and it is made up of 100% men. That's normal. This is typically what you're going to find in these scenarios. Now, the other thing that we want to pay attention to is how freaking easy the shot was. And that's the scary thing, right? Like, this shooter was about 120 yards away. 120 meters, 120 yards, give or take, right? Roughly that distance. That, even with iron sights, should have been an easy shot for the assailant. Now, the reason we say this is because there is no shortage of individuals rapidly working to shoot at 75 to 150-yard distances, rapidly setting their rifles up, holding them. This person's not even on, a bipod. Rapidly setting up in transitions with an AR-15. That's 75. I believe that was 100. And there's your distance shot. You could hear with the sound difference. That's 150. So, I mean, that took him a fraction of a second here to pop over and get his 150 shot. On iron sight. He might have a scope. It's a little difficult to tell here. But either way, scope or not, these are shots that should be very, very reasonably easy to take. And that's scary that the Secret Service lets somebody within that box. Don't like it at all. I mean, obviously you could pick up rifles with hollow. Is it possible that he was shooting subsonic, some kind of suppressed shot? Maybe. Here's just another example. Now, obviously, he's got a sight on his weapon.
This is Gordon at Indian Rock Tactical. We're down here to the range today, just doing a little play shooting. We're going to be shooting the old 5.56 here at some steel targets at unknown distance on that part. So we're just here to have a little fun.
You hear the lag between shot and impact, too. Anyway, if you find my perspective useful at all, feel free to consider subscribing to the channel, share the video. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, and stay safe.
These things that you told us here, I feel like nobody else knows about this.
We'll try a little advertising and see how it goes.
Congratulations, man. You have done so much. People love you. People look up to you.
Kevin Paffrath there, financial analyst and YouTuber. Meet Kevin. Always great to get your take.
Even though I'm a licensed financial advisor, licensed real estate broker, and becoming a stockbroker, this video is not personalized advice for you. It is not tax, legal, or otherwise personalized advice tailored to you. This video provides generalized perspective, information, and commentary. Any third-party content I show shall not be deemed endorsed by me. This video is not and shall never be deemed reasonably sufficient information for the purposes of evaluating a security or investment decision. Any links or promoted products are either paid affiliations or products or services we may benefit from. I also personally operate an actively managed ETF. I may personally hold or otherwise hold long or short positions in various securities, potentially including those mentioned in this video. However, I have no relationship to any issuer other than HouseHack, nor am I presently acting as a market maker. Make sure if you're considering investing in HouseHack to always read the PPM at househack.com.